Okay, and welcome back. This is Accounting 1. This lesson is going to be for Chapter 4, Lesson 2, and it is posting separate amounts from a journal to a general ledger. So in the last lesson, we learned that the ledger is where we can keep track of each individual account. And the journal is what we learned how to do in Chapter 3, where we posted everything in chronological order, put everything in chronological order. So posting, your only vocabulary word for this section, is transferring information from a journal entry to a ledger account. So it's just the act of transferring it from one spot to another. For example, all the changes in cash are going to be brought together into the cash ledger so that we can easily see how much cash we have. There are a couple rules for posting. The first rule is that separate amounts in the journal's general amount columns are posted individually to the account written in the account title column. Okay, that is a lot of words, but that is the first rule. So basically what that is saying to you, let me see if I can find a picture. Okay, here we go. So this is what we did in the last chapter. So basically what that said is separate amounts in the journal's general amount columns. So the general amount columns is the only thing you're going to worry about. All this stuff over here, we're going to ignore that. So if there's an amount written here, we're going to be posting that. So we would do Chem Park Capital, we would do supplies, prepaid insurance, but we're skipping everything that's over here. Okay? Next, rule number 2. Says that separate amounts, oops, if I can get my paper lined up, separate amounts in a journal's special amount columns are not posted individually. Instead, the totals are posted at the end of the month. So now we're going to ignore all of this side because we already did it, and it's the end of the month, which was actually on this page, okay? So we will now be posting not these two numbers because those are the general ones. We're only dealing with the special columns. So we have 3 special columns, the sales credit, the cash debit, and the cash credit. We're going to be posting these 3 totals. Remember whenever I said in the last chapter how a cash sale is your favorite because that's the least amount of work? That's because there wasn't anything to post individually. We have to do each one of these numbers. Well, every time we didn't have to write something over here, we get to add them all up and do it in one step instead of individually. So your sales credit and your cash debit, that took care of your cash sales. That means we didn't have to do anything for any of those accounts. That's why when we had one of those, we went ahead and put the check mark because there would be no posting to happen. Okay. So let's take a look at the steps for posting. There are 4 steps when you're posting. First thing we'll do is we'll be writing the date. Then we'll be writing the post reference number. In this case, or it's the journal page number, so this shows where that information came from. Just like we did whenever we were putting it in the journal, we had to put where it came from. Step number 3 is we will write in the appropriate debit or credit column. So if it was a debit, we're going to put it in the debit column. If it was a credit, we'll put it in the credit column. And number 4, we will calculate the balance and write it in the appropriate debit or credit balance column. So remember back in chapter 1 or 2 where we learned which side was normal? That's going to be very important now. So let's just go ahead and take a look at number 1. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Okay. If you're in my class, you should have gotten a printout of this so that you can put it into your notebook. Okay. So the first one, this came straight from our journal, which was right here. That's the one we're posting. It's just showing you a little piece of the journal now. The first step was write the date. So the date, we were dealing with August. So I'm going to put in my date. This is the first one in August, so I have to write the month. And it's the first one in this year, so I'm going to put in the year. Okay? Then nothing goes in your item column. This is going to stay blank unless you had brought a balance forward. And we'll deal with that later. But for right now, just remember your item column. You're leaving it blank. Step number 2 was your post reference. That is, where do we know that this happened? Well, we know it happened because it came from journal page number 1. So all I have to do is put a 1 there. The next step was to write the amount in the appropriate debit or credit column. This is easy. All we have to do is copy. This was a debit of $275, so it's still going to be a debit of $275. The next step is calculate the balance. Okay, we have to put this in the balance column. So to show you the math, the previous balance, there wasn't one. So our previous balance was 0 plus, see if I can line this up, plus our debit amount of $275 equals $275. Okay, because this is supplies, supplies is an asset has a normal debit balance, and because this was a debit, we're going to put this in the debit balance column. You must do the balance after every posting. Okay, there should be something in the balance columns after every posting. Okay, and then to show that I am done with this one, I forgot to white this out for you guys, but this is account number 150, so I'm going to come up here into my post reference and put 150. That's going to show that I know that this transaction is done. And so then if I get interrupted, if the telephone rings, whatever happens, I know exactly where I'm at in the posting process. Okay, we're going to look at the next one. So if we went on down our journal page, same one here from the 7th, we're going to be dealing with the supplies. Okay, we're still just dealing with supplies. We're ignoring this accounts payable for right now. So we need to post another supplies. We're going to start with the date. Come down here and put a 7. I don't have to put August in the year because we already did this one. Post reference. Where did this come from? We're still on journal page 1, so it's still a 1. Now comes the copy. Okay, this was a debit of $500. This will be a debit of $500. Now to figure the balance. Okay, so this time our previous balance was $275 plus this transaction, which was a debit of $500. So $275 plus $500 is going to equal $775. Okay? So then for our balance over here, we're going to put in the debit balance column $775. This is going to show me, so now I know if I want to say, how much have we spent in supplies this period, this fiscal period, I can look and immediately see that it's been $775. So to show that this is done, I'm going to take my 150 back to my journal page, and write it right here so that we know that that transaction is complete. Okay, now let's look at posting from a credit column. Those two have both been debits. We're going to look at a credit. So this transaction was on August the 1st, Kim Park Capital. So we go to the Kim Park Capital ledger page. I'm going to put the date of August the 1st. It's the first one of this month and year, so I have to fill that information in. Post reference came from journal page number 1. This time it's a credit of $5,000. So instead of going to the debit column, I'm going to go to the credit column and put in my $5,000. $6. Okay, now I have to calculate my balance. So the previous balance was 0. This amount is for $5,000. So 0 plus 5,000 equals 5,000. And because this is a credit, my balance is now going to be a credit. And if you think back, Kim Park Capital, all capital accounts, they're an owner's equity, and an owner's equity has a normal credit balance. Okay, normal balance is always the side that increases. Okay, so to review, your term reviews, you're going to have just one. That's the word posting. Make sure you have that in. And then audit your understanding. You have 2 questions for that. If I can line it up. Number 1, list the 5 steps of posting from the general columns of a journal to the general ledger. Okay. I guess I forgot one of our steps. That's really bad of me. So what is our 5th step? Okay, because if you went back to this page I showed you, I only showed you 4. I must have missed my other page. What was the 5th step? We wrote the date, we wrote the post reference, we put it in the appropriate debit or credit column. Then we did the calculation for the balance column. The next thing was to go back to the journal and put in the post reference there with the account number. So number 5 is put in the post reference on the journal page. Okay. And question number 2, are the totals of the general debit and general credit columns posted? So think back, did we post, here we go, did we post these 2 totals or not? And why? I'll see you in class.